Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Hockey Talk with TG Podcast. I'm Todd Glenn. Hopefully you guys are having a great day. If you're watching on YouTube, you see that I got on my 2015 Blackhawks Stanley Cup Championship shirt, but obviously we won't be winning the Stanley Cup for a while now since we're on a rebuilding team. But anyway, this is the NHL Trade Deadline recap episode of the Hockey Talk with TG Podcast, and as promised, I will get this episode to you guys out on Monday. I'm actually recording this episode on NHL Trade Deadline Day, but for you guys, it will come out on Monday, so you will be able to see it then. Because like I said before, if you hadn't paid attention to my announcements, that on Monday I was going to recap, or at least recap the top 10 trades of the Hockey Talk. I was going to recap the top 10 trades that happened at the deadline, and I was going to give my thoughts on them and share who were the winners and losers of the trades. So that was going to be for Monday. I will get that out to you guys. Like I said, I'm actually recording this on NHL Trade Deadline Day, but on Monday it will be out for you. Alright, so a lot of big trades has happened, but before we get into them, make sure that you are following the Hockey Talk with TG Podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and iHeartRadio, and subscribe to the YouTube channel, with you every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 11:30 a.m. to noon Central Time, 12:30 p.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern Time. So you do not want to miss the best content I put out to you guys on the Hockey Talk with TG Podcast. And for all my YouTubers, I think I might put this recap episode on the TG Hockey channel, since I put the preview episode on the TG Hockey channel. So it will make sense for me to put the recap episode on the TG Hockey channel. And then for Wednesday's episode, of course, it will be on the Hockey Talk TG Podcast YouTube channel. But anyway, without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get right into the trade action. So Brad Marchand, I know you Bruins fans are shocked. I was shocked about the trade that went down Friday. Well, at least for me today. But for you guys last Friday, that Brad Marchand is now a Florida Panther after 16 seasons in Beantown. He goes to the Florida Panthers. And in return, the Bruins receive a 2027 second round pick. And of course, Brad Marchand, we knew this was coming. We didn't know he was going to go to the Florida Panthers, though. We knew he was going to be traded, but we didn't know it would go to he would be on the Florida Panthers. And if you guys didn't see my preview episode of Hockey Talk TG Podcast, I did not have him as the Florida Panthers going to the Florida Panthers. I had him going to the Maple Leafs, which I know you Bruins fans will probably hate that too, considering the rivalry that you guys have with the Leafs, which you guys have been dominant against the Leafs in the playoffs before. I had the Vancouver Canucks down as one of the trades, which I know Canucks fans are not going to like that. Bruins fans are not going to like that, considering what happened in 2011 when the Bruins won the Stanley Cup. I had them going to the Golden Knights, which, fun fact, well, actually not a fun fact, but on Fridays, you guys didn't see, Vegas Golden Knights were quiet all throughout the trade deadline until they tweeted this on X or Twitter, or whatever you want to call it now. They said one word. Hi! That was the one word that they said on trade deadline day. So we thought that maybe Vegas might make a move. They might go get somebody. I thought it was going to be Brad Marchand at first, because like I said, she didn't see my preview episode of the Hockey Talk with TG Podcast. I had Brad Marchand as going to the Golden Knights as one of the teams. I didn't have him going to the Florida Panthers, so I'm still kind of in shock as you guys. But in his final season with the Boston Bruins, he has 47 points in 61 games played, 21 goals, 26 assists for 47 points in 61 games played in his final year with the Boston Bruins for Brad Marchand. Like I mentioned before, 16 seasons with the Boston Bruins. 16 seasons in Beantown for Brad Marchand, in which he had 976 points in 1,090 games played, 422 goals, 554 assists for 976 points in 1,090 games played. And in the playoffs for the Bruins, 138 points in 157 games played in the playoffs, 56 goals, 82 assists for 138 points in 157 games played in the playoffs for Brad Marchand. He is a two-time NHL All-Star. He went to the All-Star game in 2017 and in 2018, which, of course, in 2018, he got boos from the Lightning fans when the All-Star game was in Tampa in 2018. 2011 Stanley Cup champion for Brad Marchand. Fourth in games played with 1,090. Fourth in goals with 422. Sixth in assists with 554. Fifth in points with 976. And first in shorthanded goals with 36. Now, the winners of this trade is obviously the Florida Panthers, because they are trying to go back-to-back and win back-to-back Stanley Cups. And I know they got Seth Jones from my Chicago Blackhawks. They got Brad Marchand from the Boston Bruins, two veterans that, could get it done. I mean, I do like what Florida did at the trade deadline, though. Losers of this trade, it's got to be the Boston Bruins. I'm sorry if you're a Bruins fan. And if you guys did not see on my social media stories, I had the Bruins that's not making the playoffs. And the reason why I said that, because they traded away what they did at the trade deadline. Not trading away Brad Marchand. They also traded away Charlie Coyle to the Colorado Avalanche. They traded away Trent Fredericks to the Edmonton Oilers. Traded away Brandon Carlo to the Toronto Maple Leafs. So I don't know what Don Sweeney is doing for you guys, his franchise, but I don't see you guys as a playoff team in April. At one point, I was like, you know what? I'm hopping on the Boston train. I'm thinking that they will make the Stanley Cup playoffs. I believe the Bruins will make the Stanley Cup playoffs. But after what I seen at the trade deadline, it went from this to this. I don't see it. Not one chance. Not a single bit. Nothing will change my mind that the Bruins will make the playoffs this year. I was with the Bruins for the second they can make the playoffs, but what they did at the trade deadline, I don't see it happening. And I'm sorry if you're a Bruins fan, but I'm just stating the facts. I'm not trying to be hard on your team. I'm not trying to be mean to your team, but I am stating the facts. Based on what you did at the deadline, I don't see you guys making the playoffs at all. I'm sorry. But it's going to be interesting to see Brad Marchand, a Florida Panther, like I said, a trade that we did not see coming. And it's really going to be interesting if he potentially plays on the line with Sam Bennett and Matthew Tkachuk. I know Matthew Tkachuk is out with an injury right now, but the Panthers hope to have him back when it's playoff time. And boy, oh boy, you got Matthew Tkachuk, you got Sam Bennett, and you got Brad Marchand on the same line in the playoffs with the Florida Panthers. The three physical, gritty forwards for the Florida Panthers. And when I see Matthew Tkachuk, Sam Bennett, and Matthew Tkachuk, Sam Bennett, and Brad Marchand on the same team, you want to know how I see them as? I see them as the Hanson brothers. And if you guys did not watch Slapshot, the Hanson brothers were a gritty, physical unit when they were out on the ice together. If you did not watch that scene in the Hanson brother, I did not mean to say that. If you guys did not see Slapshot, which I know Slapshot, very popular hockey movie, and very popular in the 1970s when it came out. If you did not watch that scene of the Hanson brothers in the movie Slapshot, the Hanson brothers, when they went out on the ice, they wrecked and obliterate everybody that they saw. And I'm pretty sure that even if you didn't see the movie Slapshot, you still remember that scene because it was such an iconic scene, I would say, when the Hanson brothers were just out on the ice, knocking everybody into the walls, knocking everybody down, obliterating everybody that they saw. I feel like this will be the same way if we see Matthew Tkachuk, Sam Bennett, and Brad Marchand on the line. Just like that. But let me know what you guys think of that Brad Marchand trade. Obviously, I'm still in shock. I did not have the Panthers as one of the teams that Brad Marchand can go to. But let me know you guys' thoughts on the trade in the comments down below. All right, now we're going to get into another big trade that happened at the deadline on Friday. But for me, it's today because I'm recording this on trade deadline day. And for you guys, it will be last Friday. So, of course, what we saw Brad Marchand go to the Florida Panthers. Now we're seeing Mikko Rantanen, the Moose, going to the Dallas Stars by the Carolina Hurricanes. Currently on an 8-year deal contract he signed with the Colorado Avalanche back in September of, I think, 2019. Yep, it was 2019 that he signed that 8-year deal. And Hurricanes, in return for Mikko Rantanen, they received Logan Stankoven, a 2026 and 2027 first-round pick. Also 2026 and 2027 third-round pick. I hope I'm getting this right because I was trying to, as this trade was popping up, I was on Instagram, I was on Twitter, and I was, on the NHL website. I was on the computer looking up the details and notes for this trade. So if I did not get that trade right, just let me know down in the comments. But I did know Mikko Rantanen is heading to the Star State, Dallas, Texas. But I think the Hurricanes got Logan Stankoven, 2026 and a 2027 first round pick, also 2026 and 2027 third round pick. In return, if that trade for the Hurricanes is wrong, please let me know down in the comments. Like I said, I was on Instagram, I was on Twitter, looking this up on the internet, trying to get all the notes down so I can tell it to you guys on my podcast. But this season, Mikko Rantanen, he has 70 points in 62 games played with the Avalanche and Hurricanes this season. 27 goals, 43 assists for 70 points in 62 games played with the Avalanche and Hurricanes. But as you guys know, he was in that three-way team trade with the Carolina Hurricanes and my Chicago Blackhawks, which we retained 50% of Mikko Rantanen's salary when it happened. He was in that three-way trade back in, I think, what was it? I can't even remember when it was. But he was in that three-way trade, and we thought he was going to be a great fit for the Carolina Hurricanes. Hurricanes were going to be cup contenders. I see them as playoff contenders after that trade. I thought they were going to go at it for the cup and keep Mikko Rantanen, but obviously it didn't work out there. But you should take a look at his stats with the Hurricanes. He has 6 points in 13 games played, 2 goals, 4 assists for 6 points in 13 games played with Carolina. His stats for Colorado, obviously 64 points in 49 games played, 25 goals, 39 assists for 64 points in 49 games played. It's in the final year of a 6-year, $9.25 million contract deal he signed with the Colorado Avalanche on September 28th of 2019, and he will be a UFA at the end of the season. Obviously, the Blackhawks couldn't acquire him because, like I said, they retained 50% of his contract deal. But maybe the offseason, maybe he comes to the Shot City, Chicago, Illinois. But we will just have to see. Or the Blackhawks can go out and get Mitch Marner. He'll also be a UFA at the end of the season. But moving on to the Hurricane side of this deal, Logan Stankoven, he's in the second season of a $2.44 million contract deal he signed with Dallas on September 28th of 2021. And Logan Stankoven, he has 29 points in 59 games played for the Stars this season, 9 goals, 20 assists for 29 points in 59 games played for Dallas. He was drafted 47th overall in the second round of the 2021 NHL Draft by the Stars, and during his first 2 seasons with Dallas, he has 43 points in 83 games played, 15 goals, 28 assists for 43 points in 83 games played this season with Dallas. Winners to this trade, it's got to be the Dallas Stars. I mean, We talked about this on the Hockey Talk with TG podcast. If you have not been listening, which hopefully you have, but if you haven't, I talked about how the Dallas Stars have so much depth on their team. And if you take a look at Daily Faceoff website, they're going to have a whole lot of depth with the addition of Mikko Rantanen. Of course, he's a goal scorer. He's known for his offensive skills, his offensive flair. And he's a goal scorer. I wouldn't say he's a goal scoring machine, but he's a goal scorer. I mean, he'll light the lamp just like that. I mean, we've seen it during his time in Colorado, which he won the Stanley Cup with Colorado. And I know there's been a lot of people talking about a possibility of the Avalanche playing the Stars in the first round of the 2025 Stanley Cup playoffs. And I am all in on that. I would love to see Colorado play Dallas in the first round of the 2025 Stanley Cup playoffs. Trust me, I am all in. I would love to see it. The Moose going up against the team that he won a cup with. And the team that he's been with for a long time before he was traded to Carolina. So I would love to see the Avs and Stars in round one of the Stanley Cup playoffs this year. And if we don't, hopefully we get in the second round. But I would love to see it in round one if it happens, which I hope it does. But you would just have to see come the end of the season. Losers in the trade is the Carolina Hurricanes. That was, even though Mikko Rantanen wasn't having a great start to Carolina, I still think that he would have been a great fit for you guys. And I felt like this was, probably dumb for the Hurricanes to trade Mikko Rantanen. I think if I was Carolina, I would have let Mikko Rantanen stay. I know what he can bring. I know his skills. I know what Mikko Rantanen can bring to the table. He's a great hockey player for sure. And I think he should have stayed in Carolina instead of trading him. And when I first saw the trade of Mikko Rantanen going to the Carolina Hurricanes, I'm like, oh boy, this is a team that can go all the way for the cup. I believe the Hurricanes can win the Stanley Cup now that they got Mikko Rantanen and Taylor Hall on their team. But now it's looking like, I don't see it happening. Not one bit. So that's my losers of the trade. I feel like the Hurricanes should have kept Mikko Rantanen. He's a great player. I think the need for trading him was just kind of stupid. So the Hurricanes, I got to say the losers of the trade. Winners of the trade has to be the Dallas Stars. They'll have a lot of offensive firepower now with the addition of Mikko Rantanen. Alright, so this wasn't on Friday, but it was actually last Wednesday for this trade. Oliver Bjorkstrand and Yanni Gourde traded to the Tampa Bay Lightning by the Seattle Kraken last Wednesday. And in return, Seattle received for Michael Amisimov. Hopefully I pronounced that last name right. Conditional 2026 first round pick and 2027 first round pick and a second round pick in the 2025 NHL draft. Oliver Bjorkstrand is on the fourth season of a 5-year, $27 million contract deal. He signed with the Blue Jackets on January 6th of 2021, and he will become a unrestricted free agent after next season. So going now, he has 37 points in 61 games played this season with the Kraken, 16 goals, 21 assists with 37 points in 61 games played. For Yanni Gourde, obviously coming back to Tampa, he knows the familiarity there. Even though there's no Steven Stamkos in Tampa, he's with Nashville, which I don't even know what Nashville is doing at this point. But obviously they will sell us at the deadline. So, yeah. But going back to Yanni Gourde, final season of a 6-year, $31 million contract deal. He signed with the Lightning on November 2nd of 2018. And he will be a unrestricted free agent after this season. And like I said, coming back to Tampa, he's a 2-time Stanley Cup champion with the Lightning. And I think he's made his NHL debut with the Lightning, I think in December 2015. Correct me if I'm wrong. I may be wrong on that, but if I am wrong, just let me know down in the comments. Don't be afraid to say you had this wrong, it's actually this, or don't be afraid to respond in the comments, guys. I will always love to hear what you say. Whether you agree or disagree with the things I say, or even if you think it was something completely dumb that I said, I would still love to hear from you. So don't be afraid to respond in the comments. And I think I have the comments on for Spotify and YouTube. I don't have it on for Apple Podcasts or iHeartRadio, so you can't respond on there. But you can go to Spotify or YouTube to respond on there. So if you think something was dumb that I said, just let me know down in the comments. But obviously, I would love to see Yanni Gourde back in Tampa playing for the Lightning, his old squad. And, of course, Lightning General Manager Julian Brisebois, hopefully I pronounced that last name right, said that he was fine with trading away draft picks. And, of course, Mikhail Misimov, he had 10 points in 57 games played with the Lightning this season, 5 goals, 5 assists for 10 points. In 57 games played with the Lightning this season, thoughts on the trade? I think it's a fair trade. I mean, obviously the Kraken, not going to be a playoff team. And they're probably going to be trending into a new direction. They're going to try and rebuild. Well, I don't want to say they're rebuilding, but they're trying to, move away parts that don't feel like they're needed. They're heading into a new direction. That's all I can say on that. Winners of the trade, Tampa Bay Lightning for sure. I mean, you get a solid good player, Oliver Bjorkstrand, and then you get Yanni Gourde, who, of course, has played on the team before being claimed by the Kraken in the 2021 NHL expansion draft. A lot of familiarity with the team for Yanni Gourde, and he's going to have no problem with fitting in right again. It's great to see him come back with the Tampa Bay Lightning, and I'm all in on this. And obviously, you guys know that the loser of this trade is Seattle Kraken, just because of the reasons I said. Obviously, General Manager Ron Francis is I wouldn't say cooking up something, but obviously looking forward to a new strategy for the Kraken right there. All right, moving on to another trade. So Dylan Cozens, along with Dennis Gilbert, gets traded to the Senators by the Sabres at the trade deadline. Ottawa also received a second-round pick in the 2026 NHL Draft, and in return, the Sabres received Josh Norris and Jacob Bernard Docker. So, of course, Dylan Cozens is in the second year of a 7-year, $49.7 million contract deal he signed with the Sabres on February 7th of 2023. 31 points in 61 games played for Dylan Cozens, 11 goals, 20 assists for 31 points in 61 games played. And, of course, he was drafted 7th overall in the first round of the 2019 NHL Draft by the Sabres. And in his first 5 seasons with Buffalo, he had 197 points in 341 games played, 77 goals, 120 assists for 197 points in 341 games played. And for Dennis Gilbert, he signed a 1-year contract deal with the Sabres on July 1st, 2024, and can become a unrestricted free agent after the season. He had 5 assists during this season as well for the Sabres. And on the other side of this trade, Josh Norris is in the 3rd season of a 8-year, $63.6 million contract deal he signed with the Senators on July 14th of 2022. 33 points in 53 games played this season for Josh Norris. 20 goals, 13 assists for 33 points in 53 games played this season. And in his first 6 seasons with the Senators, he had 156 points in 236 games played. So 90 goals, 66 assists for 156 points in 236 games played. He was drafted 19th overall in the first round of the 2017 NHL Draft by Ottawa. And for Jacob Bernard Docker, another player involved in this trade, he's in the last of a 2-year, $1.61 million contract deal he signed with Ottawa on July 1st of 2023 and can become a UFA after this season. And of course, Jacob Bernard Docker, he has 4 points in 25 games played, 1 goal, 3 assists for 4 points in 25 games played. He was drafted 26th overall in the first round of the 2018 NHL Draft by the Senators. In his first 5 seasons with Ottawa, he has 20 points in 129 games played, 5 goals, 15 assists for 20 points, 129 games played. Let me know if that sounds right to you guys. Like I said, I was taking the notes. I was reading off the NHL website and looking this up, so I just want to make sure I had the correct, accurate notes for you guys. But that's what I saw when I looked it up. When I first looked it up, I thought this was crazy at first, but yeah. Winners to the trade, it has to be the Senators. I wanted Dylan Cozens to come to the Chicago Blackhawks. I mean, I had that as a potential fit of Dylan Cozens coming to the Chicago Blackhawks. I put that in one of my articles on Blackhawk Up, which is, of course, on Fansided. But obviously, Dylan Cozens is headed to the capital of Canada, Ottawa, Ontario. Wish he would have became a Chicago Blackhawk, but obviously he is going to Ottawa to play for the Senators. And loses the trade, obviously has to be the Buffalo Sabres. Josh Norris, don't get me wrong, Josh Norris is a great player for Buffalo, but obviously Dylan Cozens was hoping, I know Sabres fans was hoping that Dylan Cozens can be around for the long haul. And Buffalo has such young talent on their team, and now they're trading the talent away. And I don't know where they're going at in this direction. But obviously, General Manager Kevin Adams, the Buffalo Sabres, is thinking otherwise. But I think they should have still kept Dylan Cozens despite the trade rumors. But if you were going to trade him, it should have been to the Chicago Blackhawks. But Senators, they get a great solid player and Dylan Cozens. I know Brady Tkachuk. I watched his interview, and he talked about Josh Norris getting traded. He was emotional in his interview as well, so he couldn't really say that much because he was emotional. Obviously, a good friend of his, and you hate to see a player like that, especially a player that you've known for a long time or for a while now, get traded to a different team. But obviously, that is the case for Josh Norris. No longer an Ottawa Senator. He's headed to Buffalo, New York, playing for the Buffalo Sabres. All right, another trade that went down. I don't think this happened on Friday at the deadline, but obviously Riley Smith going back to the VGK, Vegas Golden Knights. And the Rangers, they acquired Brad Marchand and a 3rd-round pick in the 2025 NHL Draft, which was previously owned by the San Jose Sharks. They also retained 50% of Riley Smith's salary. And Riley Smith, he's in the final season of a 3-year, $15 million contract deal. He signed with the Golden Knights on July 13th of 2022 and can become a UFA after this season. And Riley Smith, he has 29 points in 58 games played this season for the Rangers, 10 goals, 19 assists for 29 points in 58 games played for the Rangers this season. But he is going back to Vegas, an original misfit for the Golden Knights, drafted by the Golden Knights in the expansion draft in 2017. So he's an OG right there. He spent his first 6 seasons when Vegas came to the league. Spent 6 seasons with the Golden Knights when the Golden Knights won the league, which was in 2017. And he had 286 points in 399 games played. So 124 goals, 162 assists for 286 points in 399 games played. And let's not forget, he was part of the Golden Knights Stanley Cup team in 2023. He won the Stanley Cup with the Vegas Golden Knights. And, of course, Jonathan Marchand won the Conn Smythe Trophy that year. And for Brad Marchand, no points in 9 games played with the Golden Knights this season, and 8 points in 2 games played in his first 2 seasons with the Golden Knights. And of course, those stats are from the 2023-24 NHL season. So that's also his career stats. and that's also from the 2023-24 NHL season. He was drafted 29th overall in the first round of the 2020 NHL draft by Vegas, and after the trade, he was assigned to the Hartford Wolfpack of the AHL. Winners to the trade, it has to be the Golden Knights. I mean, they get their original misfit back in Riley Smith. He's been with the team before. A lot of familiarity with the team. Same thing I was saying about Yanni Gourde going back to Tampa. And Riley Smith, he's going to, have a great impact with the Golden Knights right away. As I'm recording this, the Golden Knights are in action today. Who are they playing, though? I know they're in action today. And they are playing the Pittsburgh Penguins. And like I said, I'm recording this on trade deadline day, but this episode will be out to you on Monday. Losers of the trade, it has to be the New York Rangers. Obviously, trading away a great veteran in Riley Smith, but obviously the Rangers trying to make the playoffs, trying to add some young talent, and they're trying to, go at it on the deep playoff run. The Eastern Conference is tight. Not going to lie, I haven't been keeping a close eye on the Eastern Conference. I've been keeping a close eye on the Western Conference since my Chicago Blackhawks are in the Western Conference, but we all know they're not going to be a playoff team, but I've been keeping an eye on Western Conference teams, instead of Eastern Conference teams. But speaking of the Blackhawks, they traded Peter Mrazek and Craig Smith to the Detroit Red Wings for Joe Veleno. So Peter Mrazek, he's in the first year of a 2-year contract deal he signed with the Blackhawks on January 24th to 2024 and can become a UFA after next season. So after the 2025-26 NHL season, Peter Mrazek will be a UFA. And obviously Peter Mrazek has played with the Detroit Red Wings before. So a lot of familiarity in Detroit. And taking a look at his stats with the Blackhawks, he's 10-19 and 2 with a 3.46 goals against average and a .890 save percentage in 33 games played this season. And in his first 3 seasons with Chicago, not a good start as Blackhawks fans expected. 38-72-9 with a 3.34 goals against average and a .899 save percentage and 1 shutout this season. Of course, like I mentioned, Peter Mrazek, as you guys may know, he did play for the Red Wings before. He actually spent 6 seasons with Detroit before going over to Philadelphia to play for the Philadelphia Flyers. And his stats with the Red Wings during his 6 seasons, 72, 58, and 20 with a 2.60 goals against average and a .912 save percentage and 13 shutouts this season. For Craig Smith, who was part of this trade, 16 points in 40 games played this season for Craig Smith when he was on the Blackhawks. Of course, the Blackhawks signed him in free agency this past offseason. 9 goals, 7 assists, 16 points in 40 games played for Craig Smith when he was on the Blackhawks. And Joe Veleno, 10 points in 56 games played this season for the Red Wings. 5 goals, 5 assists for 10 points in 56 games played this season for Joe Veleno. Drafted 30th overall in the first round of 2018 NHL Draft by the Red Wings. He spent 5 seasons with Detroit for 2020 and 2025. 74 points in 288 games played with the Red Wings during his 5 seasons. 35 goals, 39 assists for 74 points in 288 games played. Winners of the trade, it has to be the Chicago Blackhawks. They're rebuilding. They don't need aging young. That did not make any sense. I'm sorry if you had to hear that, but that did not come out right. Winners of the trade has to be the Chicago Blackhawks because they don't need aging players on their team. They're a young team. We need the young talent to step up. I said this in some of my articles on Fansided's Blackhawk Up page. If you haven't been keeping a lookout on this, you haven't visited Blackhawk Up on Fanside, I recommend you do because I am putting out articles on there. I'm not going to tell you guys my next article, but I did put an article out there on 5 players the Blackhawks could trade at the deadline. Obviously, they only trade away 1 out of the 5 players I had on that article in Peter Mrazek. But yeah, winners of the trade has to be the Blackhawks. They don't need these aging 38, 37-year-old players on the team. We need our young talent to step up and somebody to help out Connor Bedard and Peter Mrazek. Rough go in Chicago. This trade was pretty much needed. And of course, Craig Smith, another player that kind of had a feeling would be traded. Losers to the trade has to be the Red Wings. I don't know why. This trade was very solid to me, but if I had to pick a winner of this trade, it had to be the Blackhawks. But I thought overall this was very solid. But obviously the winners of the trade are the Blackhawks. Losers of the trade are the Red Wings. And I think I probably put the Red Wings as losers of the trade just on how tight. I don't know what the Yzer playing looks like in Detroit. Obviously Detroit is, as I'm recording this, 1 point out of a playoff spot. And I don't know if the Red Wings are making right moves or wrong moves, but I just had them as losers of the trade. But let me know you guys' thoughts on that trade. Do you think the Red Wings lost this trade, or do you think it was a win for the trade, or do you think it was a solid trade? But overall, I thought it was very solid. But if I had to choose the winners of the trade, it has to be the Blackhawks. Losers of the trade has to be the Red Wings. All right, so moving on, another big trade or solid trade. Flyers trade Scott Laughton to the Toronto Maple Leafs at the deadline. Maple Leafs also received a 2025 4th-round pick and a 2027 6th-round pick, and they retained 50% of Scott Laughton's salary. Flyers received Nikita Granbankin, hopefully I pronounced that last name right, and a conditional 2027 1st-round pick in return. 4th year of a $3 million contract deal. I think this was Scott Laughton, I believe. Or this might be for Nikita Granbankin. I didn't really put who on my notes. But his contract's set to expire after the 2025-26 NHL season, and he'll be a UFA. And for Scott Laughton, 27 points in 60 games played this season. 11 goals, 16 assists with 27 points in 60 games played. For Scott Laughton this season, he was drafted 20th overall in the 1st round of the 2012 NHL Draft by the Flyers. And he played 12 seasons in the city of brotherly love. 265 points in 661 games played for the Flyers. For Scott Laughton, 106 goals, 159 assists for 265 points in 661 games played. And for Nikita Granbankin, hopefully I pronounced that last name right, he has no points in 7 games played with the Leafs this season. It's actually his first season in the NHL. He's 23 years old. He turns 24 in May. And he was drafted as the 6th pick in the 5th round of 2022 NHL Draft. Winners of this trade has to be the Maple Leafs. Obviously, they get a good, solid, gritty forward in Scott Laughton. At least I think he's a gritty forward. I'm not 100% sure, but he's a solid forward and can contribute to the team. Obviously, the Maple Leafs are a playoff team, so that's another reason why. Losers of the trade, Philadelphia Flyers. I don't think, like I said, the Eastern Conference is very tight, and the Flyers are 5 points out of a playoff spot. So it feels like it could happen or it cannot happen. But if I had to choose, I don't think the Flyers are making the playoffs, and I'm sorry if you're a Flyers fan. But I don't think I see it happening, Philly making the playoffs. But obviously, Matvei Michkov is the face of your franchise. He'll turn that franchise around just like that. And I have him as winning the Calder Trophy this year. So, but obviously, I don't think the Flyers are a playoff team. I'm sorry if you're a Flyers fan. I know your counterparts, the Philadelphia Eagles, won the Super Bowl. You guys got to celebrate them, but I don't think we'll be seeing Flyers hockey in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Another trade that the Flyers made on Friday, Andrei Kuzmenko going to the LA Kings for Friday, and Philadelphia received a 2027 third-round pick in return. Kuzmenko is in the last of a 2-year, $11 million contract deal he signed with the Canucks on January 26, 2023, and he can become a UFA after the season. Kuzmenko has 20 points in 44 games played this season, 6 goals, 14 assists for 20 points in 44 games played. 15 of those points were with the Calgary Flames, where he had 4 goals, 11 assists for 15 points in 37 games played. Of course, he was traded to the Flyers along with what's his name? Andrei Kuzmenko was traded to the Flyers along with Jacob Peltier for Joe Farabee and Morgan Frost. And in his 7 games with the Flyers, he had 5 points, 2 goals, 3 assists for 5 points in 7 games played with Philly. Winners of the trade has to be the LA Kings, playoff team. And obviously we could get a Oilers versus Kings first round series for the fourth straight year. So, and the Kings, they're going to be a playoff team. Flyers, on the other hand, are not. Like I said, I don't know what Philly's doing. Like I said, I think they're trying to rebuild, or I don't know what Danny Briere is cooking in Philly, but obviously I think that was they were the losers of this trade. All right, so now we're not going to be talking about just one move, but these last 2 notes and things that I want to talk about is team moves at the deadline. And one of the teams that I felt like cooked the most in this deadline, or that had the busiest deadline on Friday, was the Colorado Avalanche. First, they went out and they got Brock Nelson and prospect William Dufour in exchange for forward Callum Ritchie, Oliver Clinton, who's a defenseman, a conditional first-round pick in the 2026 or 2027 NHL draft, and a conditional third-round pick in the 2028 NHL draft. Islanders did retain 50% of Brock Nelson's salary, and Brock Nelson is in the final year of his contract deal. He is set to become a unrestricted free agent after the season. Brock Nelson obviously was emotional in his interview after the Islanders won 3-2 against the Jets on Wednesday, or Tuesday. It was either Tuesday or Wednesday. I'm not 100% sure. I think it was Tuesday, and obviously Brock Nelson was emotional in his interview. Kind of knew that was his final game as a New York Islander. He spent 12 seasons with the Islanders before getting traded to Colorado, in which he had 574 points and 901 games played, so 295 goals, 279 assists for 574 points and 901 games. For William Dufour, he is 23 years old. It kind of sounds like William Dafoe, the person who plays the Green Goblin in the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movie. Kind of sounds, the last name sounds like that though, but anyway, William Dufour, 23 years old. He's mainly played in the AHL, so he has limited NHL experience. He has been getting a lot of NHL action. He's mainly been in the AHL, but he was drafted in the 5th round, 28th pick by the Islanders in 2020, and he won the Memorial Cup in 2022 with the St. John Sea Dogs, and he was actually the QMJHL, which of course stands for Quebec Major Junior Hockey League Player of the Year. And of course, the Islanders traded Brock Nelson due to successful contract extension talks. And for the Avalanche, they bolster up their center depth. They added not only Brock Nelson and Charlie Coyle, which I'll get into in a second, in the trade. So winners of the trade has to be Colorado Avalanche. They get a veteran in Brock Nelson, and of course the Avalanche need that veteran experience, especially since their captain Gabriel Landeskog has been out for surgery and has not played a game yet for the Colorado Avalanche after the Avalanche won the Stanley Cup in 2022. So after the Avalanche won the Stanley Cup in 2022, that was the last game for Gabriel Landeskog. And the Avalanche, they need a veteran. They got a veteran in Brock Nelson. And I think this was a great trade from General Manager Joe Sakic. So really did like that trade. Losing the trade has to be the New York Islanders. The Islanders, they're right there in a playoff spot. They're right there. They're actually 4 points out of a playoff spot as I'm recording this. Like I said, this will change when this episode comes out on Monday to you guys. But like I said before, I'm recording this on trade deadline day. This episode will be out to you on Monday. As I'm recording this, they're 4 points out of a playoff spot. And so they're right there in the Eastern Conference. So who knows if they'll get in or not. But now to the Charlie Coyle trade. So Avalanche acquired forward Charlie Coyle in a 2026 fifth-round pick from the Boston Bruins in exchange for Casey Middlestat, prospect William Zellers, and a second-round pick in the 2025 NHL Draft. And Charlie Coyle, 33 years old. He has 22 points in 64 games played this season with the Bruins, 15 goals, 7 assists for 22 points, 64 games played with Boston. And in his 7 seasons with the Bruins, he had 230 points in 452 games played, 96 goals, 134 assists for 230 points in 452 games played. Of course, he was traded to the Bruins by the Wild at the 2019 NHL Trade Deadline. And for Casey Middlestat, 26 years old, 34 points in 63 games played this season for Casey Middlestat, 11 goals, 23 assists for 63 11 goals, 23 assists for 34 points, 63 games played this season for Casey Middlestat. And in his, what I would say, first 1.5 of the season with the Avalanche, because of course he was in that Bo Byram trade last season. He had 44 points in 81 games played, 15 goals, 29 assists for 44 points in 81 games played. Of course, the Bruins get a younger center in Casey Middlestat. And, of course, they look to have youth and potential in the lineup. I don't know what the Boston Bruins are doing now after they trade away Brad Marchand, Charlie Coyle, Trent Frederick, and Brandon Carlo. I don't know what Don Sweeney is doing right now, but obviously the Bruins did not like the fact that the Bruins fans did not like the fact that Brad Marchand is going to the Florida Panthers. And that's not all that the Avalanche did. They went out and got Eric Johnson, who, of course, used to play for the Colorado Avalanche. He was with the Avalanche before. He was with them when they won the Stanley Cup in 2022. So he was with the team before. He returns to the team after playing for the Buffalo Sabres and Philadelphia Flyers. And in return, the Avalanche traded Giovanni Smith to the Flyers in exchange for... they traded Giovanni Smith to the Flyers. I don't know if... any draft picks were involved in that trade, but the Flyers sent Giovanni Smith to the Lehigh Valley Phantoms of the AHL. And for Eric Johnson, he's played 22 games played this season for Philadelphia. He has 1 goal and 2 assists for 3 points in those 22 games played. And of course, Eric Johnson, he signed a 1-year, $1 million contract deal with the Flyers this past offseason, and he will be a UFA after this season. So we'll see if the Avalanche will look to re-sign him. Obviously, he's been with the team. He's won a Stanley Cup with the team before. So we'll see what General Manager Joe Sakic does. Winners of the trade, Colorado Avalanche to get their defenseman back in Eric Johnson. Losers of the trade, it has to be the Philadelphia Flyers. Like I said, I don't know what Danny Briere is doing with this team. At some point, but obviously, I don't think the Flyers are going to be a playoff team. Avalanche, on the other hand, will. They're more stacked. They got a lot of offense. Well, I wouldn't say a lot of offensive firepower, but they have a great offense in general. And overall thoughts on the Avalanche acquisitions this season. They added Scott Wedgwood from Nashville. They get Mackenzie Blackwood from San Jose. Martin Necas and Jack Drury from Carolina. Charlie Coyle from the Bruins. And Brock Nelson from the Islanders. I think Joe Sakic has done really good with this team. And the Avalanche started off poorly. They started off the season poorly, but now with those acquisitions, they are right there in the wild card playoff spot. So Avalanche have done good with their acquisition so far this season. So I really like what I saw. All right, now going on to the Winnipeg Jets. So, of course, the Winnipeg Jets, they acquired Luke Schenn from the Pittsburgh Penguins. So, of course, the Penguins actually acquired him from Nashville. He was in that Tommy Novak trade. So they got Tommy Novak and Luke Schenn from Nashville for Michael Bunting. Now the Penguins flip him over to the Winnipeg Jets. But in return, they get a 2026 second-round pick and a 2027 fourth-round pick. Take a look at Luke Schenn's stats this season. He has 5 points to 61 games played, 1 goal, 4 assists for 5 points to 61 games played this season for Luke Schenn. He's a 2-time Stanley Cup champion with the Tampa Bay Lightning. And in his career, he had 203 points in 1,057 games played, 44 goals, 159 assists for 203 points in 1,057 games played. And I thought the Jets were going to go out and get Brady Schenn from the St. Louis Blues and have him reunited with his brother or play with his brother on the same team. Obviously, that wasn't the case. And, of course, Luke Schenn is known for his veteran presence. He brings a lot of experience to the team for the Jets, who obviously trying to make a run for the Cup. And he's in the second year of a 3-year, $8.25 million contract deal he signed with the Predators on July 1st, 2023. Winners of the trade has to be the Jets. Obviously, they're a playoff team, one of the top 10 teams in the league, trying to make a run for the Cup. Losers of the trade, Pittsburgh Penguins. Obviously, I see the Penguins as a rebuilding team. I don't think they're going to have Sidney Crosby, Getty Malkin, Chris Letang on the team together anymore, even though Sidney Crosby did not get traded at the deadline. But that's just how I see it. They're not going to be a playoff team. Their direction has gone, downhill. And that's not all that the Winnipeg Jets did. They went out and got Brandon Tanev, who is a name that you should know if you're a Jets fan, because Brandon Tanev used to play for the Winnipeg Jets before playing for the Seattle Kraken. Now the Jets bring him back on the team in exchange for a second-round pick in the 2027 NHL Draft. And like I mentioned, he played for the Jets before. 51 points in 195 games played during his time in Winnipeg. 24 goals, 27 assists for 51 points and 195 games played. Jets actually played the Devils on Friday. They beat them 6-1, which I feel bad for the Devils now because their star player Jack Hughes is going to be out for the remainder of the season. And also Dougie Hamilton, I believe, is going to be out for the remainder of the season. In this season with the Kraken for Brandon Tanev, he has 17 points and 60 games played, 9 goals, 8 assists for 17 points and 60 games played. And, of course, Brandon Tanev, he's known for his speed, energy, and effectiveness on the ice. And winners of this trade has to be the Jets. They get their old player. They get the player that used to play for the team before, and Brandon Tanev back. Losers of the trade has to be the Seattle Kraken. Kraken, obviously not a playoff team this year. Like I said, General Manager Ron Francis is having that team go in a new direction, so we'll just have to see what the Kraken have in store this upcoming offseason and what they do. All right, guys, so that is going to do it for this long episode of the Hockey Talk with TG podcast. Thank you guys for tuning in as always. 53 minutes, probably might go to 54 minutes. This is probably my longest episode of the Hockey Talk with TG podcast ever. So, yeah. But we did have to talk about a lot of trades and stuff that happened. It was a busy deadline, but I just wanted to name the top 10 trades and, stuff on the podcast. So, that's all. Both of you guys have a great rest of your day. God first as always. Be blessed. I will see you guys Wednesday for another episode of the Hockey Talk with TG podcast. Take care.